The Sinister Enigma of Siberia, unexplained terrifying secrets revealed after 30 years. Lisa Harper could feel a chill crawl up her spine as she stepped out into the frostbitten air of Maplewood. The news spread like wildfire through the town, whispering of dark secrets buried years ago. Families had vanished into thin air, swallowed by the very ground they walked on. It was almost too much to comprehend, but Lisa felt it gnawing at her core. Was this town really as safe as she had believed? Every morning, after dropping Jason and Emily off at the local school, she steered her car past the abandoned municipal building, a crumbling relic of neglect that loomed ominously at the town's edge. Graffitied walls grinned at her from the shadows, and she shuddered. The stories were true. Something terrible had happened here, something that still echoed in the silence of those forsaken halls. She couldn't shake the feeling that the building was watching her, waiting, but life had to move on. She settled into her job as a marketing assistant, the hum of the office drowning out the creeping unease. Yet late at night, in the stillness of her home, fear prickled at her skin. Something was wrong. Jason had taken a liking to Mr. Abernathy, their reclusive neighbor, a man Lisa had always dismissed as harmless. But the odd glint in his eye and his stories of long-lost residents stirred dread within her. Children were vanishing. After all, winter crushed the land underfoot, coating it with a soft white layer that should have brought joy. Instead, it revealed secrets Lisa wished she could ignore. One morning, she stepped outside, and there they were, fresh footprints leading away from her yard into the dense woods behind her home. Her heart raced. Who had been here? Panic clawed its way up her throat. Could her kids really be safe? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Catching her breath, Lisa glanced at the darkened edges of the woods, fear morphing into something shapeless, something primal. That same day, a flicker of light caught her eye, a figure lurking near the abandoned building. Her pulse quickened to a pounding symphony, dread coiling inside her. She stumbled back into the safety of her home, her trembling hands clenching her phone as she fought to call the police. But they dismissed her fears, told her she was imagining things. Unease settled like a stone in her gut. Had her neighbors always been so willing to ignore whispers of missing children? Sizing them up, she saw them through a different lens now. What lay behind their friendly smiles? What did they know? The silence stung, suffocating her. As the days flowed into nights, the woods began to feel alive, the trees whispering secrets just beyond her reach. Even Jason began to talk excitedly about Mr. Abernathy's tales of spirits demanding justice. Desperation surged within her. Time was running out, and she needed to protect her family. The truth loomed just beyond the shadows, whispering. What dark truth lurked at the heart of her seemingly perfect neighborhood? Each night, as the moon hung heavy and pale over Maplewood, Lisa lay awake, her gaze tracing the lines of shadows that slipped through her curtains. The walls of her home felt too close, stifling, as if they knew the unspeakable things that roamed outside. The rhythmic ticking of the clock became a sinister chorus, reminding her that each passing moment meant her children were just that much closer to danger. Jason's fascination with Mr. Abernathy festered like an open wound. He says it's not just ghosts, Mom. There are things that get lost in the woods, Jason had whispered, his wide blue eyes alight with excitement. But all Lisa could see were those haunting footprints imprinted in the snow, leading away from their yard, leading deeper into the woods. One bitter morning, with the sun hiding shyly behind the clouds, Lisa stepped outside to find her anxiety materialized. The footprints had returned, this time darker, deeper, as if someone or something was watching her, waiting for the right moment to strike. She shivered, tightening her grip on the doorknob, afraid to step further into the cold, unforgiving world. The wind howled through the trees, a warning she couldn't decipher. Determined to get answers, Lisa drove towards the town library, seeking the old newspapers that filled the dusty shelves. She needed to know. The clerks eyed her suspiciously, whispers trailing behind her like ghosts as she searched for the articles chronicling the disappearances. Each headline was a dagger, each story an echo of despair, children's faces frozen in time, forever smiling in the photographs. In her gut, she felt a sharp pain. Those children were just names to the town now, forgotten. Listening to the gossip around town, she felt the weight of eyes upon her, a push and pull that dared her to back down. But she couldn't. Not with her family at stake. That evening, as she returned home with newspapers clasped tightly to her chest, Lisa noticed Mr. Abernathy standing at the edge of his yard. He squinted against the fading light, his thin lips drawn into a tight line. She felt the pull of his gaze prick at her like icy fingers. "Your kids should steer clear of the woods," he called out, his voice gravelly, laced with a caution that sent bile rising in her throat. "There are things in those trees, hungry things. They only come out when the snow falls deep enough to cover the traces." His words curled around her, tight and suffocating. "And what do you know about them?" She couldn't stop herself. The question fell out before she thought it through. "More than you'd imagine, Lisa." His eyes gleamed with something dark, and for a heartbeat, a chill spread through her as she saw his gaze slide to Jason. Protectiveness surged in her. What was he hiding? What did he want? Days weighed on, each layer of worry blending with the winter fog that enveloped the town. And then, one frigid night, as she settled into a restless sleep, she was jolted awake by a chilling scream. The sound was raw, filled with terror, a child's voice. Her heart raced as she bolted from her bed, the floorboards creaking underfoot. "Jason!" She rushed to his room, her hands trembling as she flung open the door. But he was gone. Only the shadows remained, swirling in the corners like dark wraiths, mocking her panic. "Mom!" The voice came from outside, echoing in the night, weaving through the trees. She hesitated, torn between reason and the primal urge to protect her son. What if it was a trap? What if it was the woods calling him to join the lost? But as she dashed down the stairs, the night whispered promises. "It shouldn't help me, Mom." The icy dread that settled in her bones solidified her resolve. She raced out into the waiting dark, the swirling fog swallowing her whole, leaving the warmth of her home behind. With every step, the weight of the secrets clung to her, heavier than the winter snow. At that moment, Lisa knew, the truth she sought would cost her everything. But in the darkness, she would find him or perish trying. What awaited her in that suffocating night? The darkness swallowed her, a thick shroud that wrapped around Lisa as she stepped into the night. Each breath she took came with the biting chill that clawed at her throat. The fog swirled like tendrils of smoke, wrapping her tighter in its cold embrace. She heard the wind wailing through the trees, a banshee-esque call haunting her ears. "Jason!" She shouted, her voice trembling, swallowed by the vastness around her. Each call felt like a desperate prayer sent into the abyss. Then, that voice. It rang out again, more terrified this time. "Mom! Please!" The urgency drove her forward, fear propelling her with the force of a freight train. Lisa stumbled over roots and branches as they reached out to trip her, each crack underfoot resonating like a gunshot in the still night. The trees loomed, twisted and unnatural, a forest alive with dark intent. It felt as if the woods themselves were breathing, watching her with unseen eyes, and then there was silence. The kind that clung to her ears, making her heart race. Panic bubbled up as she pressed on, fear anchoring her feet in place. Searching for her son felt more like a grave mistake than a protective instinct. What if he was luring her into a trap? What if the whispers from Mr. Abernathy were true? "Please!" The voice was weaker now. "Mom!" It cut through the silence like a knife. Lisa's heart shattered as she sprinted forward, a primal instinct surging within her. Every step felt wrong, unnatural, but she pushed past the fear gnawing at her. Finally, she burst into a small clearing. The moon's light filtered through the branches, illuminating what looked like a makeshift circle of stones. In the center lay a figure, curled and small. "Jason!" She cried again, rushing forward. As she reached him, a wave of nausea washed over her. The closer she got, the more she realized it wasn't Jason. It was a doll, worn and tattered, its eyes stitched tight like a keeper of secrets. "Mom!" came the voice again. It didn't come from the doll, but from somewhere behind her, frozen in place. Lisa turned, feeling the hair on the back of her neck rise. "Jason!" she called again, her voice trembling. But the figure that emerged from the shadows was not her son. It was a child, pale and ghost-like, standing with a hollow expression on its face, eyes wide but empty. And beside it, more figures began to materialize, children with haunted, unblinking stares staring right at her. "Join us," one whispered, the breeze brushing softly against her skin, cold and inviting. She staggered back, her heart pounding. "No! Where's Jason?" Her desperation crackled in the air. "Lost." "Like us," another child's voice whispered, drifting like leaves in the wind. The clearing felt alive, throbbing with their unspeakable sorrow. Lisa's mind raced, grasping at the thin threads of hope. Could they help her find him? Or were these shadows of the lost merely a mirage, a trap set by the very woods they haunted? "Find him before he joins us," the ghostly child rasped, gesturing toward the encroaching trees that seemed alive with the promise of unspeakable horrors. The cold twisted in her gut. "What do you mean? Where is he?" But the children merely stared, their faces melting into the shadows, leaving only that chilling silence behind. Panic tightened her chest. She turned back to where Jason's voice had come from, but the path was gone, swallowed by the woods, and all that remained was the night that promised dread. Amidst the whispers of the lost children, one question gnawed at her sanity: would she find her son, or was she already too late? Lisa staggered, her veins cold as ice. The whispers clawed at her thoughts, tugging her deeper into despair. "Find him before he joins us." The echo of that warning reverberated in her mind as she fought back a rising tide of panic. The children's hollow gazes pierced through her, shrouded in sorrow and a profound emptiness. What had happened to Jason? Was he truly lost among these spirits? The doll lay in the center of the clearing, a symbol of the sinister truth lurking around her. She couldn't look at it anymore. Those stitched eyes felt like they were staring straight into her soul, mocking her helplessness. Desperation clawed at her throat. She had to act. Turning on her heel, she scanned the twisted trees for any hint, any fraction of her son's voice. "Jason! I'm coming!" she yelled, her voice echoing through the oppressive air. But this time, there was only silence. The wind had died down, leaving a thick veil of dread. She began walking, then running, stumbling through the underbrush as shadows danced around her. The darkness seemed to breathe in tandem with her labored gasps. Every rustle of leaves filled her with dread. Every snap of a twig felt like a warning. Ahead, the faint outline of a path emerged, barely visible beneath the undergrowth. She rushed towards it, a fleeting hope igniting her resolve. Suddenly, a cold gust swept through the trees, and the whispers returned, louder now, swirling around her like a maelstrom. Join us, they chanted in unison, a haunting lullaby. Lisa pressed her hands to her ears. "Stop! I need my son!" The echo of her cries faded into the stillness, swallowed whole by the night. As she continued along the path, shadows flitted just beyond her vision, figures blending into the darkness, forever out of reach. Her heart raced, and she fought the urge to turn back, knowing the absence of her son would haunt her forever if she did. "Mom!" The voice drifted again, faint like a wisp of smoke. It was different this time, almost futile, as if Jason was fading away. "Jason!" she screamed, the anguish in her voice slicing through the night. The trees parted slightly, revealing a second clearing cloaked in shadows. And there, in the center, was a child's laughter, light and sweet, but utterly wrong. It was filled with a darkness that chilled her bones. "Come play with us." Lisa hesitated, an instinctual revulsion gripping her. The laughter was too enticing, too luring. She stepped cautiously forward, every inch feeling wrong, every breath laden with dread. The children were back, circling her like predators. "Join us, Lisa," they chimed in unison, their eyes darkening, reflecting the moonlight like voids. "Where's my son?" She pressed onward, shaking with rage and fear. "Lost, join us," their voices blended into a dirge, wrapping tighter around her, constricting her breath. "No!" she cried, refusing to be entangled in whatever fate awaited those lost souls. "I will find him. I have to." Then the laughter turned malicious, the children's faces shifting, contorting. Their features twisted into grotesque masks of joy mixed with something far darker. Lisa felt her resolve waning, desperation clawed at her throat, the weight of the situation overwhelming. But a flash of light flickered through the trees, a beacon cutting through the encroaching darkness. Could that be Jason? A possibility, a lifeline straining her senses. She turned and sprinted towards the shimmering light, the whispers growing frantic behind her. "Don't leave us. Don't go." As she burst through the trees, the light enveloped her. There was Jason, standing alone, pale and terrified, but alive, his eyes wide and pleading. "Mom! Help!" he cried, but before she could reach out to him, the light flickered and vanished, the shadows closed in again, and Lisa was engulfed. The children's laughter morphed into shrieks of delight, a cacophony of joy that felt more like a death knell. She was trapped. Where had the light gone? And was it perhaps some cruel illusion, or was it too late to ask? "Jason!" she shouted, panic ripping through her, a feeling sharper than any blade. Would she ever find him in this accursed place? And then she heard it, the unmistakable sound of laughter, his laughter cutting through the void, echoing somewhere in the distance. As dread clawed at her throat, Lisa's heart raced again. Would she dare follow it? The laughter faded into a ghostly echo, taunting her, leading her further into the shadows. Each step felt like a descent into madness, the weight of despair pressing heavily on her chest. "Jason!" she called again, desperation pouring from her throat. This time, her voice trembled, wavering in a way she hadn't expected. The children, those ghastly little figures, continued their pursuit, their glances shifting between pity and malice. The air thickened with their whispers, creeping closer, closing in. He's ours, they chanted, their voices merging into a dissonant choir that rattled her very bones. Lisa clutched at her head, fighting to keep her sanity intact. She couldn't give in. Those devouring shadows wanted to lead her astray, to lure her into their dark embrace. But Jason's laughter, the pure, innocent sound, beckoned from the distance, fragile yet persistent. With renewed determination, Lisa moved forward, propelled by the echoes of her son's joy. Before her, the underbrush transformed into a surreal blur of branches and ferns. The path twisted underfoot, constantly shifting as if the forest itself was alive and aware. Every rustle felt deliberate, every flicker around her a warning. She was not alone. And then she saw it, a flicker of light cutting through the darkness ahead, brighter and more vivid than before. Jason! He was there, just beyond reach, coaxing her closer with that innocent smile that had been taken from her for far too long. "Mom!" he cried again, his voice more desperate now. The urgency sent a chill down her spine. The clearing where he stood illuminated an area that felt impossibly out of place in this gloom. But as Lisa approached, the laughter morphed again, changing from carefree delight to something sinister. The faces of the children twisted in unsettling ways, their eyes flashing with that same dark void. "You can't leave," they hissed, phantoms of grief spreading their arms wide as they obscured her path. "Let him go!" Lisa shouted, anger fueling her defiance. She surged forward, brushing against those shadowy figures. Their coldness sent shudders through her body, but she pressed on, determined. Jason's form grew clearer as she pushed against the tide of darkness, but each step felt heavier than the last, as if the earth itself was pulling her back into despair. "Mom! Please!" His voice was now raw with fear, mercy spilling into the very air. Just as she reached out her hand, the light flickered violently, as if a storm had passed through, and darkness surged to reclaim the space. "No!" she screamed. But her cry was swallowed by a whirlpool of shadow, the children's gleeful cackles echoing hollowly around her. They closed in, their joy twisted into a grotesque celebration of loss and sorrow. In a moment of pure terror, Lisa thought she felt a hand brush against her as the children closed ranks. She momentarily lost sight of Jason. "Where are you?" Panic surged through her again, slicing deeper than a knife. Then she saw it, the doll, now standing upright, its ghastly eyes gleaming in the thin light. It was staring straight at her, and with each heartbeat, she felt the weight of its malevolent gaze. The whispers returned, stronger and more insistent, filling her mind with dread. Join us," as the shadows crept forward, an overpowering urge threatened to consume her. The children surged around her, wrapping their bony arms, pulling her into their midst. And then Jason's laughter rang out again, clear and piercing through the oppressive veil. It was close, this might be her last chance. With a final surge of will, Lisa pushed against the clamoring whispers, her heart racing. "I'm not leaving you!" she yelled, overcoming the rising chant. She charged toward the laughter, ready to rip through the crowd of shadow, ready to seize her son from their grasp. But as she tore through the veil of darkness, reality bent around her, shifting uneasily, blurring once more. "Mom!" The voice faded with each word, like a cruel specter distancing itself, slipping through her fingers once again. And just when she thought she had gained the upper hand, the forest erupted into chaos. A shriek pierced the air, then silence fell like a shroud, leaving only the sound of her gasping breaths and the distant echo of laughter. What awaited her in the darkness when the laughter stopped? Was Jason still there? Or had he vanished into the void, along with her last hope? Lisa stood at the edge of the abyss, teetering on the brink of oblivion, as the whispers returned. "Don't you want to join us?" They echoed, a promise of peace wrapped in sin. Could she turn back? Or was it already too late? The shadows thickened, wrapping around Lisa like a suffocating cloak. Her breath came in frantic gasps, desperation bubbling to the surface. The laughter, once a sweet melody, had twisted into a cruel echo. The silence that followed the shriek was oppressive, filling the air with a weight that pressed heavily against her chest. Where was Jason? She frantically scanned the faces of the children, their grins grotesque, revealing rows of sharp, yellowed teeth. "He*s ours forever," they crooned, their voices like nails dragging against glass. The chorus grew stronger, plunging her deeper into dread. She felt herself being pulled this way and that, their spectral fingers grazing her skin, sending electrifying chills coursing through her body. "Jason!" she cried. The sound echoed back at her, mocking, distorted by the trees. The forest was twisting, warping with every heartbeat, and the flickering light ahead began to fade. "Please!" Lisa begged, forcing herself forward despite the crushing voices, finding a semblance of courage buried beneath despair. She couldn't let them win. As she stumbled deeper into the clearing, a sudden gust of wind kicked up the leaves, swirling around her. Shadows sprayed like water, swirling, shifting. The doll was still there, merely a few feet away now, its blank eyes watching her every move. "Join us," it seemed to whisper, beckoning with lifeless limbs. She shuddered, recognizing the bone-deep chill of its gaze. In that moment, she had a choice: fight or surrender. "Jason!" Her heart thundered in her chest as she surged toward the doll, visceral fear igniting her limbs with fresh intensity. She could not look back. The children's whispers filled her ears, a cacophony of deceit, and she faltered, the darkness clawing at her heels. Would they wrap around her like a noose? But then, Jason's voice broke through. "Mom! I'm here." It was close, desperate, and filled with terror. She could almost see him, the warmth of his laughter a lifeline dragging her through the murk. Fueled by that flicker of hope, she fought against the oppressive tide, ripping through the circling shadows, crying out for her son, the edges of her vision dimmed, drowning in dark tendrils. She reached for the light, feeling her fingers just touch it, desperate to pull it close. Then another shriek pierced the air, this one human, agonizing. In a heartbeat, the clearing was consumed in darkness, swallowing the laughter, the whispers. The twisted faces of the children turned blank, their joy extinguished. "Mom!" The call was softer now, betrayed by fatigue. Jason's silhouette appeared, flickering like a faulty light bulb amidst the consuming dark. Lisa extended her hand, trembling, barely able to breathe. "Jason! Hold on!" But the shadows swept around her ankles, rooting her to the spot. Terrified, she fought against them, but the suffocating grip pulled her deeper into the mire. The sound of Jason's voice transformed into a ghastly cacophony of laughter before vanishing entirely. "Join us," the children teased, their voices now mocking her. The doll stepped forward, closer, a knee-bending creak echoing into the silence. "No! Get away from him!" Lisa's voice erupted from her throat, raw and desperate. Yet, the darkness surged, swallowing her cries, testing her resolve. She felt reality blurring, stretching thin like a fragile thread about to snap, just as the shadows began to overlap her vision. A burst of light illuminated the space, a beacon of warmth radiating from the doll. The whispers faded, but that piercing light seemed to draw them closer. Lisa's heart pounded wildly, her instinct screaming that something dark was shifting, and then, through the haze, she heard it. A voice, soft yet cutting. "Mom, help me!" Dread crashed over her like a wave. A visceral chill climbed her spine as despair morphed into cold realization. "Jason!" She screamed, but what emerged was not a cry for hope but a hollow question echoing in the dark. And in that instant, the sounds of the forest whispered again, a symphony of doom. "Don't you want to stay?" Was it already too late for Jason? Would she ever be able to escape the wretched grasp of the shadows? With each fleeting heartbeat, she felt the distance between them grow further, each second stretching eternally. The forest loomed, an entity unto itself, hungry. Could she defy the darkness? Or would it swallow them both whole? Lisa's heart raced as the whispers coiled tighter around her. "Join us!" echoed through the trees, winding like tendrils of smoke, suffocating and all-consuming. Panic clawed at her throat, choking back words that might bring her son closer rather than further into the abyss. The shadows pulsed, rippling through the darkness, each flicker a promise of the fate awaiting them. "Stop it!" she shouted, the desperation in her voice like glass splintering. "You don't own him. You can't keep him." But the chilling laughter persisted, weaving its way through the branches overhead, mocking her, urging her to relinquish the last shreds of hope. A cold breeze swirled, gnawing at her skin. She felt an unseen weight pressing against her, urging her to bend, to break. "This isn't a game." Her voice cracked, yet she pressed forward, driven by the flicker of Jason's fading presence, a beacon in the swirling darkness. But then she stumbled, the gnarled roots of ancient trees clawing at her feet, pulling her down. She hit the ground hard, the cool earth biting into her palms. Gasping for breath, she looked up, and through the veils of shadow, the doll loomed closer. Its glassy eyes glinted with a malice that sent ice through her veins. "Jason!" She screamed one last time, hoping to break through the barrier of shadows. The laughter turned into a terrifying crescendo, a symphony of the damned that drowned out her cries, each note a declaration of despair. And just like that, silence fell, heavy and foreboding, when she felt it, a soft tug at her heart, at first just a whisper. "Mom!" It was faint, wavering, but laced with despair that reached for her like a lifeline. The doll's hollow gaze turned towards her, malicious glee lighting its features as if welcoming her downfall. In that moment, a pulse of strength surged through Lisa. She staggered to her feet, shaking off the darkness that clung to her like a shroud. No! She wouldn't yield to them. Jason needed her. With every ounce of determination, she plunged through the shadows, each step a defiance against the crushing grasp of the swirling night. Stay away from him! She roared, desperation carving her voice. The shadows hissed, retreating for only a moment, a flicker of uncertainty dancing through the air. Mom! Jason cried again, sharper, closer. She charged forward, the whispers rising in indignation. They clawed at her mind, spilling seeds of doubt. Where was he? Was he close enough for her to reach? The imposing darkness around her twisted and shimmered, as if attempting to convince her that Jason was lost forever. Take her! The children chanted, their voices echoing, a cacophony of chaos. Join us! Join us in the shade! The woods erupted in laughter, an agonizing serenade that twisted through her mind. She felt the weight of resignation press down, urging her to submit. Yet, Jason's voice brought clarity. Mom, please! A flicker of light appeared in the distance, a dull glow against the oppressive black. Lisa's instincts ignited, propelling her toward that beacon. The laughter melted into gasps, a fading symphony of the damned. Jason! She yelled again, bursting forward, reaching toward the warmth that promised hope. The darkness howled behind her, but it was as if she were breaking through an unseen barrier constricting her breath. But as she pushed closer to the light, she realized with a sickening feeling that it was not just light but something darker wrapping around it, a ripple of shadow entwined with the glow, melding into something otherworldly. What is that? She thought, heart pounding violently against her chest. The anomaly pulsed, drawing her closer, while the shadows shrieked in terror or delight she couldn't tell. With everything on the line, she fought against an unseen force, her feet locked to the ground. Jason! The darkness thickened again, twisting her vision until all she could see was the flickering light, pulsing like a heartbeat in rhythm with her own. Squinting through the haze, she felt the pull of the shadows, the terror tightening its grip. Just before she reached the threshold, she froze, chilled by a terrifying realization. The light ahead was moving. It wasn't what it seemed. Was it leading her into a trap? A world of uncertainties loomed behind every flicker. How could she trust anything in this malevolent forest? All around her, the night pulsed with anticipation. In that pregnant silence, Lisa held her breath, heart racing, weighing the choice that would define their fate. What waited for her on the other side? Would she dare to cross? Or was it better to turn back into the consuming dark? But just as she teetered on the edge of that decision, the shadows whispered again, welcome home. She hesitated, the darkness swirling around her like an angry storm. I can't turn back now, she muttered, panic wrapping around her throat. The flickering light danced tantalizingly, pulling her focus, igniting a reckless hope. Without thinking, she lunged forward. Her foot struck a mound of damp earth, and for a heartbeat, the shadows recoiled, as if she had taken control. But that illusion shattered as the light flickered violently. It didn't promise safety. It offered something twisted, something that pulsed with a heartbeat not her own. No, no, Lisa whispered, dread sweeping over her. The air around her shimmered, thickening with an oppressive energy. Then she saw it, the glow shifted, as if alive, breathing. Jason! She cried, the sound clawing its way through the suffocating mist. Mom! The desperation in her son's voice sliced through the chaos like a knife. It was close, but mingled with the cacophony of whispers threatening to drown her. You have to fight it. She shouted into the abyss. She took another step toward the beckoning light, but the shadows recoiled again, thrumming, angry. Just tell me where you are. A shrill cackle erupted from the depths of the forest. You will never find him. The laughter twisted and morphed, echoing off the ancient trees. Join us, Lisa. Embrace the shadows. Embrace your true self. In that moment, she felt the shadows brush against her skin, sharp and cold, trying to worm their way into her mind. Images flashed before her: Jason as a young child, laughter ringing through their home, his little hands clutching hers. "Fight!" she screamed, battling against the tide of despair. But the whispers grew stronger, wrapping around her mind like chains forged from fear. "He is ours. Forever you will never escape." The ground beneath her trembled, her body vibrating with tension. The light wavered, flickering as if acknowledging the weight of her choices. A part of her wanted to succumb, to join the dark dances, feel the allure of the whispers. But another part screamed against it, the echo of a mother's love, desperate and alive. With trembling hands, she reached forward, as if she could physically claw her way through darkness. "Jason! I'm coming!" The light pulsed faster, drawing closer yet more elusive. The shadows roared in fury, their whispers turning into a storm, 1,000 voices crashing against her resolve. "You can't hold out much longer." Then she saw him, a shadow among shadows, Jason's small figure barely distinguishable against the swirling dark. "Mom!" he cried again, and with that, the world around her ripped apart. The glow brightened, yet the shadows clawed at her, pulling her back, tearing at her sanity. She felt her strength waning, energy draining as the pressure intensified. Then, in an unexpected moment, time seemed to slow. The shadows trembled, flickering with a life of their own. "There's only room for one," they hissed, a dreadful glee in every word. "Don't listen," Jason shouted, his voice clear and defiant against the din. "Mom, trust yourself. Fight them." With those words, the determination surged anew. Anger boiled inside her, a tempest stronger than fear. "I'm not afraid of you," she roared, defiance echoing through the darkness. It was her will against theirs, a battle of souls, but as she pushed through the last remnants of the shadows, the ground beneath her trembled dangerously. The world shifted, the shadows began to collapse in on each other, as if absorbing each piece of hope she emitted. At that pivotal moment, the light flickered once more, and seedling doubts resurfaced. Was this a choice she could truly control? Or was the darkness merely playing a deeper game? The pulse of the forest heightened, the air thick with anticipation once again. "What will you sacrifice to save him?" they taunted, the chilling question hanging heavy in the stillness. Lisa hesitated, breathless with the weight of their words. What would be the ultimate cost of her choice? And could she, in the end, face the shadows that threatened to consume them both? The ground beneath her seemed to quake, pushing Lisa back, shoving her deeper into the abyss. The light flickered, trapped in a war between hope and despair, and with each pulse, the shadows writhed, teasing her with their sinister whispers. "Face it, Lisa," they hissed, a chorus of voices clawing at her psyche. "You're too weak. You always have been. Just give and he'll be safer this way." "No." The word exploded from her lips, fueled by a fervor that surprised even her. The dark tendrils tightened around her, cold and snaking, as if alive and hungry. But she was a mother, and mothers fight. Summoning whatever strength she had left, she plunged forward into the light, praying it would grant her the strength to pull Jason from the clutches of the wretched night. "Jason! Hold on!" Her voice echoed, a fragile tether in the storm of chaos. There he was, a flicker of movement among the shifting shadows. Lisa's heart raced. She needed to reach him. But the ground shifted again, pulling her toward a darkness that writhed and twisted, threatening to swallow her whole. "Mom!" Jason's plea cut through the air like a knife, brimming with terror. Each cry ignited a new flame of determination. "She couldn't give up. She wouldn't, don't you dare take him." She roared into the darkness, fighting against the tightening coils that suffocated her resolve. The shadows screeched in furious defiance. "He is ours. You can't protect him from your fate." Suddenly, a flash of bright light engulfed the space, blinding and harsh. The shadows recoiled, writhing and screeching as they retreated. The vibrant glow coiled around her like a protective force, illuminating the terror for just an instant. "Mom? What is?" Jason's voice trembled, cutting off as a deep, gut-wrenching growl shook the ground around them. The shadows displayed their rage with violent bursts, crackling with energy, becoming frenzied as they fought against the unexpected brilliance of the light. "They want to let you go," a new voice whispered, low and haunting, coming from the darkness itself. "You think this light can save you? It will only lead you deeper into despair." Her heart raced wildly. Was this light one she could trust? Or merely another deception hiding something darker? Lisa felt the weight of choices before her, pressing against her limbs like chains forged from fear and uncertainty. "Let him go," she pleaded, her voice cracking, tears streaming down her cheeks. "He's just a boy." And just then, the shadows momentarily stilled, as if contemplating her desperation. The forest held its breath, waiting. Lisa sensed a shift, the dark mass hovering ominously, taunting her. "What will you sacrifice to save him?" They echoed, a chilling refrain that echoed through the trees like a grim promise. In the heart of that suffocating silence, Lisa's breath felt jagged. What could she possibly give? What price would they exact? She didn't know the answer, but time felt like it was slipping away, thin like a frayed thread ready to snap. "Mom, please," Jason's voice quivered, laced with sorrow and dread. "I will do anything," she declared, voice steadying as resolve surged through her. The shadows quivered, their anticipation palpable, hungry for her offer. As the darkness pressed closer, Lisa felt a shiver run down her spine. The lights flickered, skimming perilously close to fading. Was this truly the end? What other choices lay ahead? And in the depths of uncertainty, a far more harrowing question began to unravel in her mind. What if the darkness had already claimed Jason? What if this wasn't just a fight for him, but for their very souls? The shadows drew nearer, tightening their grip, and she could feel her heart pounding, racing against a countdown to destiny. The storm of whispers began to form a singular, insidious voice, chilling, seductive, all-knowing. "Welcome to your true self, Lisa." And within that sound, entwined with the darkness, lay the answer she feared most. Would she uncover the truth, or would she be lost forever? Only one way to find out. Lisa stood trembling in the heart of the suffocating darkness. Panic surged within her, and desperation clawed at her throat. Each shadow seemed alive, twisting around her as if trying to squeeze the breath from her lungs. "Join us," they hissed, voices curling around her mind like vines. And somewhere amidst their whispering cacophony, Jason's voice ebbed, faded. "His laughter, I can still hear it," she whispered to herself, willing it to guide her. "I will reach you, Jason." Determination ignited her spirit, forcing her to break free from the shadow's embrace. The overwhelming pressure bore down like an anvil, yet curiosity pulled her forward, every fiber of her being yearning for the flicker of hope her son represented. "What will you give?" The words echoed sinisterly as the shadows pulsed hungrily. "I will give everything." Her voice rang with fierce conviction as she pressed forward. "Will you give your soul?" They taunted, but Lisa held firm. "I will give you my strength. I will sacrifice everything I am to save him." The shadows hissed in response, retreating a fraction, drawn back by her ferocity. In that moment, she glimpsed Jason again, a flash of white against the encroaching dark, standing in a clearing just beyond her reach. "Mom!" His voice broke through, fragile yet undeniably there. Pushing through the constricting void, Lisa's heart raced. "I'm coming, Jason." The laughter of the children twisted behind her, warped and snarling. Let her through. Let her make her choice. They cried out, letting her advance. The shadows quivered, suspicious but reluctant to hold her back. Lisa lunged toward the light where Jason stood. It pulsed brightly, illuminating the darkness, revealing the twisted faces of the children who danced around them, their grins sharp and wild. "No!" she shouted, shaking off their cold caresses that tried to weigh her down, her arms breaking through the phantoms like she was shattering glass. "Mom, hurry." Jason's voice trembled yet didn't falter, giving her the last push she needed. Her feet pounded against the ground, propelling her as branches clawed at her skin, yet she couldn't give in. The whispers grew louder, swirling into a chaotic symphony as she neared Jason. "You cannot save him. You cannot protect him," they cried. "I can and I will," she shouted back, plunging forward, her heart now a drum pounding with every step. Then, finally, breaking through the facade, she reached him. The moment their hands connected, a surge of warmth enveloped them both as reality shuddered. "Mom!" Jason's eyes streamed with tears of relief and fear as he clutched her tightly, both of them overcome with the gravity of their moment. But shadows lashed out, pulsing with rage, angry that she had breached their hold. "You will never take him," Lisa shouted, pulling Jason closer. The ethereal voices shrieked, but a tidal wave of light burst forth where their cries converged, illuminating the dark figures with a blinding flash. The shadows writhed, screaming under the brightness. "Now!" Lisa held Jason tight as they surged toward the light, the tendrils of darkness recoiling around them, finally breaking as they fled toward freedom. With a final scream, the shadows shattered, dissipating like mist, leaving only echoes of their haunting whispers. They were outside, the cold air hitting them hard. The woods, once deep and dark, lay quiet under the moonlight, the malevolent entities gone at last. But Lisa couldn't rest. She needed to understand. "Why, Jason? Why were you in there?" "I heard them laughing," he murmured against her shoulder, his voice shaking. "I thought it was a game. They don't care about games. Those were lost souls." Tears sprang to her eyes, tightness cutting through her chest, but relief flooded in as she held him, grateful he was safe, that they had escaped together. From that fragile dawn, their fight wouldn't end. Maplewood was forever changed, with dark secrets still lurking beneath its surface. But now they knew the truth, and Lisa would remain vigilant, ensuring the whispers stayed silent. Jason rested his head against her, and they walked together back into the world unbreakable. As she stood in the light of newfound hope, Lisa knew they would face whatever lay ahead, together and stronger. Now, if you've enjoyed this journey and want to uncover more thrilling stories like this, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't wait even one more second to hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and support our amazing community. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion, and be sure to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this heart-pounding adventure. This is the moment to show your support, as only true fans can appreciate the power of storytelling.